So with Street Cones, we say that it's not what you've done, it's what you can become. We use arts to help facilitate that road to change.
Like a dream from a wishing well, my trawler eyes take everything in wild. I'm walking down the snake path like a hypnotist under a spell. A break from the sadness, disconnection from madness. I leap from the noise, relief in the shadows, crying out for more, like a hungry child full of life, a mishandled smiles, blown away like the flame of a candle out again, deafened by silence, fragile and lonesome again. A break from the sadness, disconnection from madness. I leap from the noise, relief in the shadows. There's a hush to destroy. I leap from the noise.
Welcome to Street Cones once again. Thank you for joining us. My name is Adam Robertson. I'm one of the facilitators who has the privilege of delivering Street Cones Road to Change workshops. Now, the group we're going to showcase today spent 12 weeks with us and were referred by Glasgow Unpaid work. So, for those of you who don't know us, Street Cones are a social enterprise and a charity who use the arts and creativity to affect positive change for the individuals and the groups that we work with. Now, the idea behind Road to Change is that we incorporate mindfulness and well-being exercises alongside various creative techniques. This is to give participants an opportunity to do some self-awareness work in a safe and non-triggering space using what we call the protection of fiction. Now, often our participants start off consider themselves not to be creative, but we know from first-hand experience now, having delivered these workshops for 6, 7, nearly 8 years, that's just simply not the case, that we are all creative. This group, like all of our groups, started week 1 with a blank page. And with our support, they built fictional characters living in an authentic story world. Various themes emerged organically. One of these was addictions and recovery, and that will be our theme during today's panel Q&A. Our workshops operate under a range of safeguarding guidelines, one of which we refer to as the privileged environment, which basically means that the sessions are anonymized, which ain't the easiest word to say, and participants are usually only use their first names. We ask that no personal details are revealed so that when they are developing the script, they don't reveal the difference between what they're making up and what is real. And that is what we call protection of fiction. In a moment, you'll be shown a short film which will showcase their end of module read-through and some of the discussion that followed. And then I'll introduce our panelists and you'll get the chance to kind of submit comments or questions. And you can start doing that now in the comment section on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter using @StreetCones. Or if any of those platforms are difficult, you can email us directly at mark@streetcones.org. So Mark, M-A-R-K, @streetcones.org. So any questions and comments can go straight to him and he'll moderate, feed them over to me, and I can introduce the panel. So without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce the short film, The Good, the Bad, and Kenmure Street.
I need to get help, Doctor. Can't go on like this. I want to get clean from away. It's just us now. My missus overdosed.
A memory repeat flashes on screen, ambulance doors slamming, and Tommy's devastated, tear-stained face lit by the emergency blue lights. Cut back to the doctor's surgery, and Tommy crunches up his face as if forcing these images out of his head.
Anyway, I just need help. Aye.
Well, there's only one way to get clean.
I can, but it's hard. I've tried, believe me, I have. It's like I'm going to die. I need to turn things around. I want to change my life. I need to get clean for my wee girl.
Come on, you! You look like shit. What about a wee pick-me-up, eh? And cause I'm such a class guy, cause we go way back, I'll even give you one tick. How's that sound?
Nah, Willie. Never again, mate.
Tommy strides past Willie, standing tall, proud of his decision. We can hear voices, muffled at first. Tommy pauses confused and decides to follow the sound. The voices get louder and louder.
What's happening?
A friendly young woman with a dog under her arm turns to Tommy.
The police lifted our neighbours this morning. We're protesting. Come and join us, mate. We're standing up for our neighbours and they don't like it. White, black, brown, Asian, it doesn't matter.
Scene 5. Hope over fear. Exterior, Kenmure Street. Tommy's sitting with his new friends, a bowl of delicious curry in hand. They're all listening to his tale and throw their heads back in laughter, then begin nodding seriously.
That's out of order, Tommy, but I'm no surprised. As you can see from today, the system's broken. No human rights, we're all just numbers to them. But you're with friends now.
Tommy nods towards the two men held prisoner, who are also eating.
Well, those were different, eh?
Tommy takes a moment to look around. Surrounding him, shoulder to shoulder, are people from all walks of life. People from the mosque, the Sikh temple, chapels, churches, synagogues, the neighbouring businesses, mums, dads, kids, grandparents, from all creeds and colours, all starting together for one cause. Tommy's immediately seen as just a junkie and all these horrible words to describe him and dismiss him. And we wanted the audience, maybe at first, to agree with that when he's shouting with the police and things like that, and think, oh, this guy's a bit of a wrong'un. But as the script goes on, we see inside Tommy's head, we see his past trauma, we see how he's affected by PTSD. We start to understand him and we see from his point of view. And when we understand him, we start seeing that he's really funny. And he's a bit of a laugh, and you'd want Tommy as your friend. And that, I think, was our main concept and what we wanted to get across, that, you know, don't disregard these people, don't see them as lesser, like, embrace them. We had these amazing discussions that weren't, you know, at no point did anyone talk over anyone. They asked questions, even if people had different opinions, came together and had these really nice, healthy discussions about them, which was so nice to see.
It was beautiful. It was great because it highlighted what happened and we kept everything honest and true, right? And it was great the way the narrative of the story was, with Tommy being down and out, nobody wanted to know him, everybody treated him like a junkie, and then he rises up, and then he finds heart again.
You know, as we're always humans, we like judge books by the cover, and I think if Hoffy's here, like, half the stuff out in the street about people and all that, then they jump straight on it, oh, that's what he is, or that's what she is. So I think it's the man here that's just a first name, and genuinely nobody knows how the end of his here.
Should all be very, very proud, and I think for me and Rona, it is the reason we keep doing this kind of work, is we get to witness people who have never entered a creative space before, or have maybe never felt welcomed into a creative space before, and we've watched them flourish. You know, to watch Liam and Joe and yourself and Ekua and Willie and all these other people who have entered this space. And let's face it was maybe an unfortunate event that led them into this journey in the first place, but they've now then found this method and this space that they can, their self-esteem improves, their communication skills improve, even their breathing improves. They're even breathing better.
I honestly got things for it that I never thought imaginable, Never really been into drama or creativity or any of that kind of stuff before, but I thoroughly enjoyed doing it, even the wee warm-up games and that, and just getting to know each other, building characters and all that kind of thing. It was really enjoyable, really. I took stuff for it that I never thought I would have got, Certainly opened my eyes to it anyway. You
guys provide a safe and secure environment for us guys to come along and participate. So it's a nice safe space and there's never any pressure putting any of us.
Yeah, at the start I was just dead shy, didn't want to kind of try and improv. I didn't really understand what it was. To me it was just like, so I have to fake being this person and fake being, and I wasn't too comfortable with it. And then as the weeks went on, it was just more comfortable with me being in my house and just being able to be myself on the camera and actually talk away to folk and put more of that into performances or improvs or just the wee games. And now you've just got this bundle of joy, doesn't shut up.
But that's interesting because the online, I mean, you're a perfect example of how the online workshop has reached you, and it wouldn't have if you were referred by a caseworker to come into a physical space. You probably wouldn't have come, and if you had, you would have been more reticent. So it's actually created an opening that didn't exist before.
It means we can also reach people that we might not normally be able to reach, and it might be a lot easier for people to participate in these workshops because they don't have to worry about bus fares and are travelling to a venue, to rehearse. So people can do it from their own living room.
Yeah.
I think everybody gets something different from them, Adam. No, me myself personally, I feel as if it gave me a bit of focus, it gave me a bit of substance, a bit of meaning, something to look forward to, rather than the monotony of everyday life. And also, I feel as if I gained a lot of benefits from it for my mental health aspects as well. Like I say, just meeting with people on a regular basis, talking to people and being able to share things, it does what it does for you, it really does. Just speak, open your mouth and speak to people.
It's good for your self-esteem. You actually, I don't know, you feel a lot better in yourself, and it actually shows that you've got a bit in your brain that you didn't actually know you've had.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. I've thoroughly enjoyed working as a team with you guys. It's just been amazing, and it's definitely confidence building and character building. And I'd just like to say right now, thank you guys for all the work that you've put in as well.
It is about mental health, about self-esteem and well-being and things like that, and the creative angle is just a vehicle for that.
There's more than one way we can approach justice, and we don't have to have that narrow focus just on punishment. There are stories out there, and I know today's story was a piece of fiction, but it's a message of truth, it's a message of hope, and it was a lovely finish. It was great to hear the way the story turned into a real message of hope.
That was fabulous. That was brilliant to watch. I'm making sure that I'm on the right link and you can all hear me now, and I don't have to do sign language and do any other kind of gesticulation. But yeah, that was fabulous, and it brings back a lot of memories from my time in those workshops. And that was the third now, and hopefully very soon due to start fourth. So it's just brilliant to see these workshops develop and to see that film. But so please, before I introduce the panel, all your comments, all your questions, get them into us via the platforms that you're watching this on, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter @StreetCones, or email directly mark@streetcones.org. Okay, mark@streetcones.org. So anything at all, it might just be a comment about the work that we do at Street Cones, or the work being done by Glasgow Community Sentence Team, or today's themes, and also that anyone watching live or via catch up and need us some support, we'll make sure that the links are posted at the end of this, so that you can take the appropriate action. So before we make a start on your comments, questions, I'd like to ask one of our panelists to say a few words on behalf of Glasgow Unpaid Work. So Deirdre O'Reilly from Glasgow Justice Services. Hi Deirdre, welcome.
Hi Adam, thank you very much. Adam, I suppose first of all, to say, it goes without saying that thank you to everyone who has participated in making the film today. I thought it was a very, very reflective piece of work. And there's no doubting that it's covering an extremely relevant issue that's facing many people in the city today and around Scotland. I think that the film reflected very well the barriers that face people and the judgment that they face in their individual roads to recovery. We know that addiction issues have a profound impact on the lives of those individuals who are affected and those around them. But we also know that despite those barriers, and as the film portrayed, even though I know this was fiction, but it was very reality-based, the film portrayed that there can be very positive outcomes with the right supports. I would say that, just in terms of Glasgow Justice Services and the unpaid work service, we've been delighted to have been able to support what has been a very worthwhile project. It's been particularly interesting to hear the feedback from the participants, sort of their own development through this process, and how much that they've got from it. But I also think, just to say to the participants, that we've also learned a lot from this process and what you've done as part of this project. I think just in terms of going forward, in terms of, you did reflect it in the film, but everyone has the right to health, and everyone has the right to a life free from harms of alcohol and drugs, and everyone has a right to be treated with respect and dignity in their road to recovery. And it's very important that in terms of that road to recovery, that is very individualized for people, and that we're all working together to see how we can best support people in that road to recovery. So I suppose, again, Alan, just to thank everybody who's participated in making the film today, and just, again, hugely reflective piece of work with a lot learned, I think.
Great, thank you, Deirdre. Let me introduce next the CEO of Glasgow Council on Alcohol, Gary Meek. Gary, if you'd like to join us, say a few words. And don't make the same mistake I made. Yes, take yourself off mute. Well done.
Thank you very much. No, that was just to echo what Deirdre was saying. That was a privilege to get to see the film, and I think it's always really important that we see the impact that this work has with individuals that are looking for different ways of engaging. I think what's really vital is that we give people methods and tools that they can use to provide a way to change things for themselves, to change things for the better. And obviously at GCA, Glasgow Council on Alcohol, we have a range of services. We also have a community justice service, which is looking at not only group work, one-to-one support, but it's about befriending, and it's also about mentoring as time passes for people and they're able to have that community outreach. And obviously during the pandemic, we too had to change a lot of the ways that we work. So in order for us to be able to reach out to as many people as possible, that meant that we would either, say for example, be doing a group by walking in the park, or meeting up with other individuals as we were able to, and bringing smaller groups into the building again. And I think what's really great to see is not only the individuals that are able to come forward and access this service, but accessing all of our other services as well. And if it's not ourselves that can be the best support, the important thing is that they come to us, and we can also help them move into other organisations that might be able to help them too. I think what's really important, and I think today we'll pick up on this as well, but there is always a GCA free phone helpline number, which is a big difference for people, which is 0808 802 9000. I had to double check I was reading that correctly. But yeah, it's important that people also can just phone up and get a bit of guidance, get a bit of support. Might be enough for a phone call, but also they can just be linked in again. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from some of the other speakers today as well. Thank you.
Great. Oh, thank you for that, Gary. So next we've got Alan Houston from Northwest Alcohol and Drug Recovery. Hi, Alan. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thanks everybody else for the effort, even just making the video and the the amount of time that goes on behind the scenes that you probably don't actually understand. Just doing that, I've done group work for years and getting the group together, and the whole process, a big confidence. I think it was Liam spoke about just that, from being closed down to actually being the sort of talkative, chatty guy that he turned into through doing that. But a lot of stuff you've talked about in there as well is pretty significant to my role. I've worked in addictions for the last 28 years, and from homelessness to currently I'm a senior addiction worker in North West Glasgow, which, as it said in the video as well, there's a lot of poverty in a lot of the areas that we work in the north of the city, and addiction is rife. But I also have the added bonus in the last 8 years I've been able to sort of develop the Northwest recovery communities, which I get to see somebody coming in the door and their journey right through out into the recovery communities. And I do clinics, we do clinics daily. We now during the pandemic we've had to adapt that, and we get prescriptions out of people's doors, we deliver them to pharmacies, various things like that. So the job's changed a wee bit, but the recovery communities has grown over the last 8 years in the city. And you can go to some event or some cafe or some drop-in or something at night time 7 days a week across Glasgow and across Scotland. It's grown as well, this sort of developing the recovery communities. So that isolation, which is quick, that people spoke about, and just even that thing about, was it Wally who was offering drugs? That's pretty real. People go to the chemist, they get offered drugs, and even if they're full of good intention and trying to stay away from drugs, then just that saturated in other people knowing how to use drugs. And I think Bob Dylan spoke about that. People are always trying to get you down the hole that they're in the sense of that when somebody's trying to do well, then Liam was trying to walk away and say, no, I'm not using, but that's quite difficult. But the recovery communities is developed, and you've talked about breathing and mindfulness, and I've been doing a men's mindfulness group for the last 8 years, non-stop. And I said the other day, the only thing that stopped it is the Beast from the East, because they shut down the centre because of the snow. But that carried online during the pandemic. It's back live in Knightswood every week. And before the pandemic, we used to get 45 men who would come there and speak about things that blew me away, just the honesty and the openness, because you created, as you did with the video, created a safe environment. So I'm looking forward to sort of having a few questions and answering some of the questions. And I must admit that I was a wee bit nervous, because it's not as easy to come on in a live thing and be asked questions that you think, I don't know the answer to them. So if I don't know the answer, then hopefully somebody else will. But thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate that. And if we could have John Campbell join us, who is the NHS Injecting Equipment Provision Manager. Hello, John.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, I'd just like to echo other people's sentiments. I feel very humbled to be asked to join the panel for today's film. So my role is to manage the needle exchange programme across Greater Glasgow and Clyde. And across the area and in the city, we have a massive injecting population. So the last report in the year, we had around 10,000 unique individuals that registered to use one or more of our needle exchange outlets. And the drugs that people are injecting are changing pretty significantly as well. We're starting to see a shift away from the more traditional injection of heroin to more people injecting cocaine, which is causing us significant issues as cocaine is injected far more frequently. So our service could be classed as a harm reduction service. We're looking to reduce the harms for the individual, but also for communities and for society as well. We understand that most people's ultimate aim is to become drug-free, is to become abstinent. And it's very, very important to us that we keep people as safe as possible while they move through their drug-using journey. So when they reach that point, they do so in the best physical and mental health possible. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, John, for that. Okay, and then last but not least, I'd like to introduce one of our fabulous participants who you saw in the film, Pauline. Pauline like to join us? Hello, Pauline. How are you? Oh, you're on mute. It's not just me that makes the mistake, although I make it. When I do it on a grand scale. So take yourself off mute. Oh no, she might have actually turned the camera off. She's had 12 weeks to get used to this, but we've had a wee break. I can't remember when we finished the program now. It was about 4 or 5 weeks ago. So Pauline left intro. Okay, so Pauline's gonna hopefully Caitlin, who's managing in the background. A thank you to Caitlin, who's handling all our tech stuff in the background. We'll try and get Pauline into the back into the room. But we've got questions starting to come through, so I'm going to start fielding some of these questions. Some of them are comments. We've got a comment from Michelle Bull via YouTube. Tears running down my face. How empowered all the participants sound. Well, that's a lovely comment. I had a lump in my throat watching it back as well. It really gives you a perspective when you see it played back rather than being in it on a weekly basis in the workshops. I've got a comment here via email from Janice Cook. I'll maybe start with you on this one, Deirdre. Or no, actually, let's have Gary, maybe you want to start on this one. Janice Cook says, why does Scotland have more alcohol and drug deaths than any other country in Europe? Is that true? Would you like to say something about that? Why does Scotland have more drug deaths than any other country, alcohol and drug deaths than any other country in Europe?
Well, thank you for that. What I would say is, I think there's not a clear answer to that. Some of the research has suggested that there are a number of contributory factors, ranging right down from actually the geography and the location of where we are in terms of historic use of using alcohol as the case in point, which was available to people very many years ago. Excuse me. And we find quite a commonality with alcohol use in a lot of the Scandinavian and northern countries where it's darker earlier in the winter. It was an opportunity for people to meet and greet, get together. And then it kind of grew from there. And I think that still is a legacy effect today. I think there's also the disenfranchisement of individuals. And I mean, one particular thing I remember somebody once telling me, and this was very powerful for me. Somebody I had been working, this was many years ago, somebody I'd been working with, and he had the most abominable childhood imaginable. He was only 18. He'd had the most abominable youth imaginable. He had just such a challenging life to be so young. And I remember he was doing fantastically well, and then we had a relapse. And I remember what he said to me was, it's like when he was using, it was heroin he was using at the time, and he said, if you could make all your problems disappear instantly, why wouldn't you do it? And it actually made me pause and step back, and I thought, I understand probably better from that one statement, that the challenges, if somebody's facing these different challenges and they need a way, they need to find other ways to help them cope with daily life, to find opportunities to move forward, to find opportunities to get through the trauma of life. And I think all of that combined has raised this, and Scotland has dealt with additional poverty issues over the years as well, social issues as well. And I think, so I've rambled on a wee bit there, but ultimately what I'm saying is, I don't think there's a single answer that will impact all of this. I think it does fall from a number of different contributory factors, and that's why we're still seeing these horrendous figures even today. So I don't know if that actually answered the question.
Yeah.
It certainly was.
I think you're right. It's a hugely complex issue as to why Scotland leads that particular table. It's a sad indictment of where we are that it does lead that table. But before I open that question up to the rest of the panel, I think we've got Pauline back. So Pauline, you want to come in to the space again? And I think we might also have Liam, who was one of the other participants there, who could join us as well. He can come in. There he is on short notice. He's always ready, Liam, always ready.
Things a wee bit, just wait until I was introduced, that was all.
Well, thank you for coming in, and thank you, Pauline. Listen, that question, I'll just say again, was asked by Janice Cook on email, and she said, why has Scotland got so many drug and alcohol deaths? So I don't know, Alan, do you want to come in maybe next? And have you got anything to add to that, to what Gary said?
Well, I suppose, like what it was saying in the video, just that whole confidence, and sometimes I think a lot of young people growing up in Scotland, and that sort of cultural thing is that I know where I grew up, and it was sort of confidence at 14, 15, because you had the confidence, so you went and get a drink to actually give yourself some confidence. But even the drug deaths and alcohol deaths just now are massive. Do you know what I mean? It says in the video about the 1,339 people have died along with drug deaths this year. And if you total that up in the last 3 years, you probably get about 4,800 deaths. And if you laid out all those bodies, and then you think about the ripple effects of families who then get into dealing with the trauma of losing a loved one, a sibling, a brother or a sister, then you're well online. And I know it might sound a bit dreary, but the fact is you're well in line to creating another population of people who are going to go out and get into drinking drugs as well. And as somebody said, that whole comfort of numbing yourself with drink or drugs to cope a wee bit better with the sort of circumstances of deprivation, poverty that people are having to live in. And alcohol is probably more prevalent in areas of poverty, which all statistics say that and we work in those communities. So I've been involved in the Drug Death Task Force in the last couple of years, and it's about the whole focus is on trying to alleviate that and stop the drug deaths through the stuff that John does, the harm reductions, naloxone. And as John said, most people, nobody's ever come into me and said that they want to continue on prescriptions or alcohol for the rest of their lives. People come to you because they want a solution. And usually the solution is that you can get them off the alcohol and drugs. But if you don't address the underlying issues of why people are actually taking the alcohol and drugs, then people will mostly get back into using again to cope with that sort of pain, trauma, various things, that lack of confidence, low self-esteem. I always remember the guy came in and described his self-esteem as that he felt that bad about himself, but he would never actually put that out to anybody because he put on the hard man exterior. But he felt that bad about himself that if somebody knocked him down, he'd apologise for denting a car. That's how he felt about himself. So him taking drink and drugs to cope with that is probably the reason why a lot of people in Scotland drink more, I think.
Yeah. John, I'll put the same question over to yourself. What would your response be to Janice's question about Scotland's rate of drug and alcohol deaths?
Okay, well, Janice, it's actually a very good question that you posed. Now, my answer is my personal opinion, so it's not necessarily that of my employers or work colleagues. I think we're making it more complex than it actually has to be. There are two separate things here. There are drivers for drug dependence. Now, they've been well reported. Alan touched on it there. Poverty, deprivation, trauma, adverse childhood events. They're all big drivers that lead to people using drugs in a dependent manner. But if that was the main reason for drug-related harm and drug-related deaths, surely we should be seeing that in other countries similar to ours. Surely we should be seeing higher levels of drug-related deaths, for example, in Eastern European countries where there is more poverty and deprivation, and I can only imagine there'd be more adverse childhood events and trauma. So what's unique about our country and what's unique about our city? And there you have to look at the drug market. We are now living in a time where there have never been a wider range of drugs available. Those drugs have never been stronger. They have never been easier to get. And most importantly, they have never been cheaper. A bag of heroin cost £10 back in 1986. With inflation and the amount that's now contained in a bag, that £10 bag should cost £140. Temazepam, the main benzodiazepine that was used back in 1986, cost between £1 and £1.50 for the capsule. We now see other benzodiazepines such as Atizolam sold for as cheap as 8p a tablet. Nobody will convince me that they are not the massive drivers for the drug harm and drug deaths that we're seeing. A level of polydrug use that we pick up in toxicology once someone has died is really high, and it's higher than all the other European countries that keep similar stats as well. That's an uncomfortable truth, and it's an uncomfortable truth when you think if the drug market is the biggest player here and we never engage with the drug market, then we're going to be limited to finding potential solutions.
That's a brilliant response. I hope Janice, I hope the panel have helped shed some light on that. Well, listen, we're so we've got some issues with Pauline's technical capabilities, so I don't know if she'll be able to join us today, but luckily we've got Liam, our participant, so Liam can I've got questions lining up for you, Liam, so have a sip of coffee, do a few warm-ups, get ready. But well, another question here via YouTube from Alex Johnson. Well done, everyone. More spaces are needed in justice space. That was a comment. And then we've got one here from Willie Young via email. Is this, and I'll take this over to you, Deirdre, this first question. Willie Young said, is this a new type of thing for unpaid work? I always thought litter picking type work was what community sentences were mostly about. So Deirdre, if you want to answer Willie's question there.
Absolutely. So there's a few different elements to unpaid work. So the participants through unpaid work, working with street cones, are doing that through other activity hours. So the participants are still doing, unpaid work hours as part of their payback to the communities. But this is an opportunity for services to engage with unpaid work participants in a different way, and to try and work with people differently, to offer people supports, to help them develop skills, and all of those skills that are going to draw on what Alan was talking about earlier, just in terms of self-confidence, your belief, and this is part of trying to look at how we support people. Yes, people do their unpaid work hours, but part of that process is also having other activity hours, and it's through this part of that process that the participants are undertaking the work that they're doing with street cones.
Yeah, I mean,
so I hope that kind of answers the question. So
yeah, and I mean, I can add to that as well. Obviously, this being my third Glasgow, although I've done the beginning of the pandemic, we were running these workshops for kind of 50% of the local authorities across Scotland. So we had up to 20 odd street cones facilitators running these workshops weekly, bi-weekly, and that it was a direct response to the pandemic, and it helped kind of plug the gap of the backlog, of unpaid work hours. And there is, and Liam, I mean, maybe is a good point for you to come in here, Liam. As somebody who has, done a community payback order, and my understanding is you have been out in the community doing work as well as this. Is that right?
I was attending the workshops on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and obviously I'm working as well. So during the week I'm working, and then on the Saturday and Sunday I'm working. Well, I was doing the charity shop, but I'd finished obviously all my hours whilst being on the workshop. So
yeah. So we had people who were doing their hours, doing the kind of litter picking, painting fences, things like that, and they were able to spend some of their, as Deirdre says, additional activity hours in workshops with us. And some people completed their hours with us and continue doing these workshops, which I think is testament to benefit that they're getting from them. So we've got some more questions coming in here. In fact, while I've got you, Liam, let's start. This is a question from Elizabeth Wright. She said, what was Liam's best and worst bits from attending these workshops? I don't know if you need to answer what the worst bits were, Liam. That's totally up to you. Don't say my riddles. They should be very proud of using a community sentence to contribute to raising awareness about such an important issue. So, yeah, if you want to answer that question, Liam, for Elizabeth, what were your best and worst bits about these workshops?
Well, the best parts is just being able to kind of use, like I said at the start in the wee video, it's just use bits of your brain that you never thought you had. And at the same sense as well, raise awareness to most of the problems and issues that are happening in the real world. But obviously we'll have a different ending to it, to what most people obviously deal with in the real world. So it's just being able to raise awareness to all that kind of stuff and actually just put it into something instead of, I don't know, not even just donating to charity or whatever. This is you actually making the change a wee bit.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was any worse bits. I just think obviously it was mostly my reading. I'm a bit dyslexic, so a wee bit of having a haw with that, but that's about it.
But that's, I mean, I know we're going over ground we went over in the video, but that was something, Liam, that you were particularly good at in terms of, the initial sessions. You were quite quiet, quite reticent, and, you could
then after a while I did turn into a sort of mentor myself and kind of help people come out their shell a wee bit, because it's stuff you don't really do, and you're not really used to doing it, and eventually you start to come out your shell a wee bit, and you see that as worth your while as well. It's not it's kind of in the same sense. These workshops are breaking that kind of cliche way that, if you're getting community service, you should be outside constantly litter picking and stuff like that. What is that actually doing to the person themselves? Is that making them kind of break that chain, or is it just kind of continue? If I do this, I'll just be litter picking. It's fine, or I'll be painting fences, or it's all right. I can do that, and I'll be getting hit with 6 months doing that, or whatever. This workshop in itself kind of breaks that chain a wee bit and takes it away from what community payback actually is, and lets everybody show that we're not all just labelled as a criminal. You have that one weakness or one set of weakness point in your life that just happened to happen, and kind of living up with the consequences to that as you go along, and you kind of just want to break that chain of events and try and steer everybody off a path. And not that we don't want to kind of stop your workshops from happening, but we want to kind of reduce this constant, this many years the percentage went up in crime and whatever, so we want to kind of reduce that as well. So that's I think these workshops benefit for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to to answer Elizabeth and say that these workshops aren't the only thing that were happening during the pandemic, and they're certainly not since, but there needs to be a kind of a tapestry approach across criminal justice, and so there's complete value in what Liam said, that people should be out picking litter, they should be painting community centre fences and digging ditches and helping in the community. But this, we believe, with street cones is valuable too. I mean, Liam has created at least 2 scripts now, and those scripts have been viewed by hundreds of people and read by
when you're standing for both of them.
and so the ripple effect of that is a very good thing for the community. We don't know at what point somebody, maybe even today, is going to hear Liam say some words as a result of that script and that workshop, who are going to make positive changes. So yes, making a picnic bench in a workstation in a work unit is valued, but building a script is a valuable thing as well, and participating in these kind of narratives is also super valuable. So, all right, we've got a question here from Douglas Hutchie via Twitter, and maybe let's start with you, Alan. Maybe what impact has the pandemic had on people either in or considering going into recovery? So what impact has the pandemic had on people either in or considering, either entering or considering entering recovery? So I'll come to you all on that, but Alan, if you want to start.
Thanks very much, Adam, and thanks for the question. personally, then just getting the online stuff up and running during the pandemic was crucial, because we had to connect a lot of volunteers, participants who even just didn't have access to smartphones. So just initially driving that forward and getting people tablets, mobile phones, so that they could actually come on to the online stuff, because isolation is a big part of addiction, in the sense people are disconnected at the best of times. So when the pandemic kicked in and people then were getting massive amounts of ORT away as well, sometimes they'd be getting delivered massive amounts of ORT to their door. So the deaths haven't stopped. So it has had a massive impact on the deaths. But whether that would have happened, because it was happening before the pandemic as well, people were dying at such in such large numbers as well. But I just think for the isolation, people being unable to get to the recovery stuff. But the thing is that there's a lot of Zoom babies, are calling them, for the want of a better word. People who have access, just like Liam and that we're talking about, they feel a bit more comfortable. As you were saying, Adam, they will come online. Whereas if that was a live show, they might not come along because of their lack of confidence, self-esteem issues, having to walk in the door with all these strangers into a sort of fellowship meeting or a recovery meeting or various things like that. So I would hope that would balance it out a wee bit, in the sense that you get a lot of people who have found recovery through being online, being able to access online meetings all around the world, getting people that they've never ever heard talking their life stories and their lived experience. Volunteers that we've got set up a daily recovery online program, and they did that across Scotland and City. So it's quite a difficult question, because I don't really know. I know that just getting people into recovery was a bit difficult, because I can't take somebody along to a group, but I could then get a couple of volunteers to then catch up with the person and get them online. We were actually going up to people's houses and showing them how to go online to set up the phones and various things like that. But there was an issue that people were having to go to chemists, get massive amounts of methadone that way, people are overdosing. And even just before I come on here today, do you know what I mean? In fact, I was on here before it kicked off, and I had to take a phone call and tell somebody that somebody had died. Do you know what I mean? So the pandemic is still affecting our work.
Yeah. Yeah. So, John, maybe come to you next. What's your response to that question about the pandemic? Douglas Hutchie is asking, what effect do you think it's had on people entering or considering entering recovery?
Okay, well, I guess talking from the harm reduction aspect, it made very little difference. Every one of our needle exchanges remained open. If you look at the city centre, then there were differences in how we accommodated populations. We had 650 individuals based in hotels, 3 main hotels in the city centre. And there was a significant amount of drug-related harm being experienced for a lot of those guys. So we had to respond to that. We responded to that by putting together a team of volunteers, and we mobilised our mobile needle exchange van, and we visited the hotels every night throughout the first lockdown, as well as providing injecting equipment, provided things like wound care, and also dry blood spot testing for bloodborne viruses such as hepatitis C and HIV. But I guess, you know, to link this in with my previous point about how the drug market has such a significant factor in drug-related harm. And in the middle of a pandemic, when we had the restrictions, lockdown periods like the country has never seen before, ever, that should have finished the drug market. The drug market didn't. The drug market regrouped, and it remained buoyant, and it's probably stronger now than it was pre-COVID. And I think we have got to learn from that as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's a scary piece of information, that it's not killed it or even diminished it, but probably strengthened it. That's a tough bit of news to accept. Gary, do you want to come in on that one? What do you feel the effect of the pandemic has been?
Well, I think obviously I would echo a lot of the sentiments said already here, but I think what we found, a number of things. Number one, initially there was particularly a lot of what we call kind of digital poverty, and we were in a position, thankfully, to resource a range of things for people. For example, it could have been smartphones, tablets, where there were young people involved as well, so they could still engage in services. What we did is, as we saw the likelihood of the lockdown coming in, we were able to do plans with each of the people that were already engaging with us, so that they knew how we were going to be able to keep in touch with them throughout the pandemic. And in actual fact, what we noticed was we were able to increase our contact with people throughout the pandemic, because normally we would have had face-to-face visits as pretty much 99% of who we worked with. But because we moved to phone calls, we were able to do things, particularly with vulnerable people, at daily check-ins. So we found that we actually started to see quite an increase in self-referrals, with people starting to contact us. And one of the other observations we had, and this may be slightly different to what John's picking up, and this could just be because of who we are, but we noticed that individuals had struggled to get access to certain drugs, particularly right at the beginning of lockdown, where people were practically housebound. And there was a dip then, and we saw quite an increase in alcohol consumption over that period, with people who had been using other substances. So how would I see that now? I think what I would say now is that we're certainly seeing an increase in alcohol use. And for example, I think our referral levels have went up by something like 50% on this time even last year. But obviously there was a dip, so it's hard to exactly pinpoint. But I think we, as my colleagues have already pointed out, I don't think we've seen the full ramifications of the pandemic yet. I think that's something we're going to keep seeing coming through over the next 6 to 8 months, or even to the next year.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thanks for the question, Douglas. Thank you for all those answers from the panel. We've got a question here from Kevin via email. Been struggling a bit, fell off the wagon. This time of year is always difficult. Where is the best place to go for support if someone is struggling? I'll watch out for the links at the end of the stream. We will put those links up. And Gary, I'm seeing your comment there with the number, the GCA helpline number, which will be put in the chat as well on all of the various platforms. Mark will be handling that. But let's start with in fact, we'll work our way. In fact, Gary, we'll keep you on for this one. Where is Kevin's asking? Where's the best place to go for support if someone's struggling? Where would you start then? Where would be the first port?
Well, I think what I would absolutely say is I would always recommend somebody to, whether it's us, whether it's any of your core people that are here today, all of us would be in a position to, even if we're not the final place that somebody would go, our jobs here are to make sure that we are at first stage. People can speak to us, whether it's about themselves or even others. What we will always be able to do is make sure that we support you to help you get the type of support you're after. I think what's really vital is that everybody understands that it's making that first call, it's taking that first step and making sure that you're getting some kind of help. That's for everybody. Absolutely everybody needs to do that, and taking that first step is the hard one. So if you or anyone you know is struggling, I would absolutely recommend to, whether it's to call ourselves or whether it's to call one of our colleagues, and just take that first step, get that initial support. And I think what's really important is that where we're all concerned as well is when you're working towards your own personal goals, it is about a genuine person-centered approach, such as you guys have already demonstrated. what do you want to achieve as an individual, and what is it that we can do then in order to make you achieve those goals? And I think what we talked about earlier as well with regards to harm reduction, I think it's really important that we just help people to feel in control. So somebody may be contacting ourselves and they think you're going to look at drug or alcohol complete abstinence, and it's maybe not about that. It's maybe about just saying, well, let's just see what we're at today, what's happening. Let's identify why there's a particular spike in what's going on right now, and what the steps could be. What are the safety measures we could put in place to try and help that individual or those family members? So I think that's what's really important is have that first reach out and see what can be done for you.
Yeah. That's really helpful, Gary. Thank you. Alan, what would you say to that question for Kevin on email?
Thanks.
Where's the first point, first direction?
Thanks very much, Adam. And thanks, Kevin, for being bold enough to actually ask for a bit of help. Do you know what I mean? I would suggest that wherever you stayed, you can get into your local ADRS office, the Alcohol and Drug Recovery Services, which used to be known as the CAT team. And you get in there right now, and you'd be seen by somebody on duty up until about 4:30, I'd say. So if you stay in Northwest, then you get into Woodside Health Centre. If you stay somewhere else, we can maybe get more information, put more information out there. But I'd sent Mark some stuff the other day with all the numbers and stuff like that. Maybe can send to somebody. But if you get in there, then you can then be assessed for your needs. And as Gary said, then sometimes people come in for different reasons. They maybe just want to reduce. They maybe need a detox. They maybe have had seizures in the past that they can't have stopped taking alcohol immediately. So they may want to go to rehab. So that could all be assessed in the ADRS, and they'll be allocated a care manager within a week, a few days. If it's drugs and somebody wanted on an ORT, opiate replacement treatment, methadone, Buvidal, which is an injection that lasts for a month now. If anybody wanted to get back onto that, or they wanted to discuss that, then that is as well, due to the new MAT standards, that can be done immediately. So somebody could walk in today and be given, be assessed physically and seen by one of the medics, and they could leave there on an ORT prescription if that's what they wanted. Do you know what I mean? And again, it's all down to what Kevin would want. So if he went in there and said, I'm looking for help to do this, then hopefully he'd be able to do that, and that can be done immediately.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks for that, Alan. And John, is there anything you want to add to that for Kevin?
No, not really. Not really. Obviously, a very bold step actually posing that question in the first place. So total respect, and I'm sure Kevin will know to keep yourself as safe as possible just now. Obviously don't know the background, but that may be, taking and carrying naloxone. It may be visiting needle exchanges as often as he has to. And the Glasgow Drug Crisis Centre is also there should they need it. But yeah, respect.
That's really good. Thank you. I hope that's helped answer that question for you, Kevin. But just stay tuned. All of the links and the phone numbers will be on whatever platform you're watching this on. I'll come back to you, Deirdre, for this question from Diane Hale via email. I usually watch the Street Cone streams on Catch Up. This is the first live one. The first Glasgow one that she watched was on suicide prevention, which was very powerful and personal to me. Thank you to everyone involved. Will there be more workshops, and what will the next theme be? Well, I can answer that. We never know what the theme is going to be until we get the participants. We never know. But Deirdre, you might be able to answer Diane's question about these kinds of workshops and other kinds of work that community justice might be doing.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Obviously, just through the pandemic, and I think as other speakers have referred to during the course of the discussion, we've had to think about different ways of engaging people, and we've learned a lot through that. We've learned a lot just about, how it's very suitable for some people and it's not suitable for others. But I suppose to answer the question, first of all, is to say, yes, Adam's absolutely right, that we don't know what the topic is going to be, because that's part of the process, and the participants attending the workshops actually come up with the topic through the process that and the work that they're doing as part of that workshop. But certainly there's going to be another workshop in the new year. And that's already gone out to staff to have a discussion with any of our service users around that. So there will be a plan for another workshop. What the topic will be, I don't know, but we should be looking at another event like this, probably March. Adam would be right, is that? Probably, yeah. So the workshop is due to start in January. However, referrals can be taken after that time as well. So it isn't, and I think that's the great thing about the sort of virtual nature of the workshops, is that it doesn't have to start at a particular date and end on a particular date. That there's a flexibility for people to come in and join it as they need.
Yeah. That's true. People do drop in throughout the 12 weeks, because some people complete their hours halfway through. Other people have just begun their hours halfway through. And the beauty of the way the workshops are structured is you can enter them at any time. I think, obviously, I'm going to come to Liam in a minute and he'll might echo this, but you get the most value if you're able to see the whole project through. But we've designed them in such a way that you would get value out of a single workshop, out of a single 2-hour workshop. So I'm going to answer two questions in one, really. There's one here from Natasha via email. What advice would Liam give people offered a place on a workshop? Also, do street cones have any self-referral options, or is it just via Justice clients? At the moment, we don't. I mean, people get in touch with us. We don't have an option to refer people onto this directly ourselves yet, but if anybody's interested, get in touch with us via either mark@streetcones.org or via our social media channels. And if there's a way that we can get you involved, we certainly will. But yeah, so what advice, Liam, would you give to people offered a place on this workshop?
Don't put all your eggs in the one basket. Just come in here with an open mind and just see how it takes you. It takes everybody differently. I can't tell you how you're going to feel it is, or down to yourself, really. It's all about how much you put into it. Like, every time I come in here, put 110% into everything I've done, and it prevailed, and look what kind of scripts we came up with. So it's all down to yourself, really. If you do ever get offered a place in here, then I would tell you to get a time machine and go back and stop yourself from doing that idiot mistake to get you in here. So, but in all fairness, if you do get offered a place, take it and just see how it goes. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But 90%, 99% of people will tell you it's the best thing you could ever do, honestly. And I've been there twice, like two scripts now, so I finished my hours halfway through the second script, so I ended up stayed there all the way to the end and came up with the ending with the guys and lasses. So just go in there and get your all. That's what I say.
I think that's really good advice. There's another question to bolt onto that one, though, Liam, from Justin or Edie via email. How did Liam feel about being anonymous? So no sharing of personal details in the workshops. How did you find that, what we call the privileged environment and the protection of fiction? How did you find that personally?
When I first found it, like, you just had to sign in with your first name and stuff. Like, I didn't find it any one bit weird or anything like that. I just found it was like kind of normal. Like, nobody needs to know any of your background or anything like that. It's like it's human nature at the end of the day. If somebody hears like you're in here for such and such, and they're in there for such and such, you just judge them by the sounds or whatever they're in there for. Well, it could be anything. So just you coming in there with that one name, that's how you're known by, and they get to know who you are instead of based on facts or whatever, So yeah, I found it was actually a lot better.
Yeah, so for Justin, I think what we've experienced, to echo what Liam was saying there with the privileged environment thing, is that it gives people that protection of fiction, and that doesn't mean the stories that we tell, like the one we're telling today, the script that came out of there, aren't real and mined out of lived experience. But using the protection of fiction, no one feels exposed or put under any undue pressure. The environment we like to create is like a rehearsal space, which means it's a space free of shame and ridicule, and it's a space free to create. So there's really no pressure on people in these workshops. There's a question here. In fact, well, there's a comment which I don't want to miss. Mandy Burns via YouTube. Thanks everyone for allowing us to engage in this session today, and well done for all the amazing work you're doing and are involved in. There is a question here from Alex Johnson from West Commercial Criminal Justice via email. Great stream today, such a big topic, very brave, and great to see Liam doing so well. Should be very proud, helping to reduce the deaths associated and the associated harms. Well done, everyone. Well, that's just a really nice comment. Let me make sure I'm not missing any ones that we've kind of covered. I think we have covered most of them. There's other questions here, but we've answered the question in previous discussions. So I would just like to give everyone an opportunity now, if there's anything else that you'd like to add. So usually at the end, I literally just work my way down the list. So I've got Deirdre at the top. Deirdre, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thanks, Adam. Again, a hugely helpful session today and hugely helpful discussion. I would just say that within Justice Services, we're very committed to our practice being embedded in supporting people with their addiction issues, and we work very closely with our partner agencies. We're acutely aware of the impact of adverse childhood experiences. Our staff are trained around trauma-informed practices, the impact of deprivation, and I suppose very much so we want to be guided by service users. We want to be guided by what works. So I would just, just to thank everybody for today, and particularly thank you to yourself, Liam, been hugely helpful, and it always is, and I genuinely mean that. It's always really, really helpful to get feedback, whether that's negative or positive, but it's really helpful to hear how you've come through that process and you're learning in that process as well. So, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Deirdre. And then I'll continue that theme of just giving everyone an opportunity to say some parting words. But one more comment's come in that I just thought I'd say, and it looks like from a previous participant, John, by email. I've finished my hours but still attend these workshops with a different local authority. I just wanted to highlight the other aspect of the workshops that I found really useful, and that wasn't anything to do with the arts or creativity. It was the mindfulness and well-being work we did, breathing exercise. We did meditation mindfulness tools that I've gone on to learn about on my own and continue using. And that's a good point. Liam will tell you, I used to start the workshops with some breathing exercises, which would get our brains into a very good kind of creative space. So there is mindfulness and breathing and some meditation stuff put in there as well as the creativity. So yeah, that's worth mentioning. Thank you, John, for that. So just if I can go down the rest of the panel and give you an opportunity to say some parting words. So Gary.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I would completely echo what Deirdre was saying as well. And I think really, first of all, thank you to everyone that's participated today. Thank you for everybody that's been involved in the film, because I think that was a really great piece of work. So it's always a pleasure to get a chance to see that and to chat around it. I think my biggest takeaway from today, or the thing I would like to leave everybody with, is the idea that, please ensure that you do contact an organisation if you're having any kind of trouble or difficulty, or you want to just know what the first step should be. First step is always just reach out and get that help in a way that's going to be useful to yourself. That's a safe place to contact. For example, GCA, by all means, please do contact us and let us see what we can do to help people with our first steps. Or if they're struggling with anything else, come to ourselves and see what we can do. So And thank you to yourself, Adam, and Mark and Caitlin for today as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you for that. Alan, any parting words from yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much, Adam, and everybody for the video. It was great just to see that whole process and the confidence developing and how that impacts on people's life. And I'd like to finish with just probably that other people thinking outside the box, like yourself doing this and Deirdre. And it was like we went to Deirdre a couple of years ago and we'd said to her that we would be willing to take people into recovery communities who were paying back their hours. So we got a guy just pre-pandemic, so we've only the opportunity to do it sort of once or twice over the last few years. And this one guy came and done 30 hours with us, but he would have been going to work in a charity shop or something. And no offence to charity shops, but the fact is the guy had a history of alcohol and drugs. So going and doing that, he might not have been saturated with people who were in recovery, who had that lived experience, that he got that bit of hope through coming and doing those 30 hours with us. And the thing is that he'd come along and we sort of give him tasks to do it and then say, why don't you get into the group? Why don't you get into mindfulness? Why don't you get into the recovery group? And he did that. And then he came and volunteered with us after that, continued to volunteer with us after that as well. And I actually got a phone call from him today because he's come to our volunteer night out if Nicholas Sturgeon does the Stopus. We're having that on Thursday night. But the thing is that this boy then continued volunteering with us all through the pandemic. And he actually done a presentation to Deirdre's team on criminal justice, and his worker was in the room who actually done a presentation too. And he completed his hours, and now he's an addiction trainee worker with SDF that he's just started and he's doing it for 2 years. And hopefully he'll never have the need to come back into the criminal justice building unless they're doing a presentation. But just that whole thing of thinking outside the box, it doesn't need to be a bit punitive about getting people to sort of tar the roads, or do you know what I'm saying? But I'd like to finish on that and thank everybody, especially Liam and Polly and the people on the video for doing that, because as I said at the beginning, I understand the whole process isn't just about the actual completed version. It's about that confidence, the sort of team building, the various things that we try and put into all the stuff we do in the recovery communities. It's about people with lived experience, promoting recovery in their own local communities, whether it's a drug or alcohol issue or not. Then we're open to people with families. Anybody who wants to continue doing the breathing exercises that Adam's quite fond of, we've got a men's group that's been running for 8 years. We're in Knightswood Community Centre. We've got a women's group on a Wednesday. We've got a full programme of events that happen in the Northwest. So hopefully that information will be passed on so that people can then come along. And the thing is that people get hope. I can give them a badge and a prescription, and I can't tell somebody what they'll get when they come along. They see somebody that they know and they say, "What, you're actually doing this? I thought you were dead, or I thought you were in jail." And that moment of hope is priceless. So well done and thinking outside the box.
Well, thank you. Thanks for those comments as well, Alan. That's brilliant. John, some parting words from yourself?
Yeah, you know, the reality is I don't get much of an opportunity to engage with our recovery communities in Glasgow. I'm pretty much drawn into the coalface harm reduction work. But every time I do, you know, I feel humbled, and we have the most amazing network, you know, across the city and further afield, you know, and I think we're all proud, everyone involved in that recovery network. And, you know, this was just a classic example of the participants that was here today. And I would love to have seen Pauline as part of this, because I'm sure she would have had tons to contribute as well. So I'm sorry about our technical problems. But thank you very much again for the invite.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming and being with us. Liam, last but not least, so say some parting words for us.
Just thanks very much for having us. Obviously, I was just literally in the door for work and I get the text message, technical difficulties, can you have me? It's just basically just playing the Batman symbol out next time I'll appear.
Well, it was good to have you.
Thanks very much for having us, and like I say, everything we've done and the message we've got across, hopefully that does, that people are watching it and they kind of take some message on board, that there is help out there, and the biggest step in itself is the person that's going through it. So it's up to them to actually take that step. So hopefully our message is not that going out there or helping.
Well, they definitely are. And big thanks to you and Pauline. For I think Pauline's probably been watching this in the background, but the technical issues have been such that it's been really chancy trying to get her in, and there's so many moving parts in the back of a live stream that it becomes difficult to manage, as we saw from me, and I've got experience at the start. So Pauline, if you're watching, it's just been great to have you here. Your contributions to the script were incredible. And we'll hopefully see you at the next module anyway, and get you involved in any way we can. But it was just great to have you on board. So listen, I just want to say thanks to the audience, to the people who are watching, whether you're watching live or you're watching on catch up, which is a big chunk of our audience watch these in their own time and follow up. Massive thanks to all the panelists, to Deirdre, to Gary, to Alan, to John, to Liam, to Pauline as well. Just delighted to have you all here and help facilitate this discussion today. Speaking of which, anybody who wants to catch up on our content, all of the previous live streams are on our YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to via streetcones.org. If you go on to streetcones.org into the roadworks section, there's our YouTube channel. Go on there, hit subscribe, and you'll get all of these, and they can be shared. And there's ones on suicide prevention, homelessness, alcohol, drug recovery, etc. There's a lot of really powerful stuff in there, including the films that we've made. We've made quite a few dramas now. So all the links are on there. So on behalf of Glasgow Justice Services, Street Cones, all the workshop participants, thank you. Have a fantastic Christmas, fantastic holidays. Stay safe. Stay well, and please, all the links will be on here for these services, and for those who are in need of them, or you know somebody in need, then please try and direct them towards the various services highlighted here today. So once again, thanks very much. All the best. Cheers.
Hungry but I can't eat. Not allowed and don't sleep in my own bed anymore. I uniform to show you who I am. Boring but it's so easy. Same faces all of the time. And my girl on the brain, I'm in dire need of change, but I'll miss it all the same. Give me the news and an honest paycheck, a season book and a set of wheels, a flash of your eye from across the party, a quiet life, an open door. Strange place, familiar faces, old furniture.